He smiled as though arriving at a dinner party. The man was tall enough to stand out, yet he somehow diminished himself with easy posture and genial eyes. His name was never formally announced. Humans preferred introductions through handshakes, but no one here wanted to touch him. The record identified him as Envoy Marcus Hale of Earth, a minor world on the Empire's periphery, a planet mocked as too young, too quarrelsome, too raw. Most delegates assumed he had been sent to beg for leniency. Hale, however, carried himself as though he were the host of the gathering. He took his seat at the central podium. The chair was designed for broad, scaled torsos and triple-jointed knees. It creaked under his more angular frame. He winced in exaggerated discomfort and set his coffee carefully on the desk. The sound of that small paper cup settling echoed far too loudly in the chamber, as if mocking the monumental silence of the alien dignitaries. "Much obliged," he said, his accent flat and unthreatening, his words rolling with warmth. "Quite the hall you've got here. Shame about the chairs. Not built for lumbar support. But I guess intimidation doesn't require comfort." The remark hung in the air. A dozen alien eyes blinked in confusion. The Rinnathai delegate, whose head was a crown of glistening mandibles, clicked irritably. "Human, you addressed the Concord without being asked." "Ah, my apologies." Hale raised a palm, smiling with the politeness of a schoolteacher correcting himself. "Old Earth habit. We tend to fill silence with noise. Makes us feel less like prey. Please proceed. I'm all ears." He mimed, wiggling his very ordinary ears. A few avian delegates tilted their heads, not sure if this was humor or insult. The presiding counselor, a long-limbed Keldrin whose skin shimmered like oil, rose with ceremonial grandeur. "Marcus Hale of Earth, you stand before the Concord to receive your species designation and fate. Your world has been annexed. Resistance is futile. You are a fragile people, divided, quarrelsome, primitive in both weapons and culture. The Empire offers you mercy, compliance, resource tithe, and obedience. Do you understand?" Hale took a slow sip of coffee. The microphone picked up the slurp, a scandalous sound in a hall where silence was sacrosanct. He sighed with the satisfaction of caffeine reaching bloodstream. "I understand perfectly," he said. "You've judged us fragile, quarrelsome, primitive. That's a lot of adjectives. I'll add one more, underestimated." A murmur rippled through the chamber. The Keldrin's oily skin flared a warning color. "Your insolence is noted." "Not insolence," Hale corrected gently. "Context. My people like context. Helps us frame a conversation. You call us fragile because we bleed red and die easy in vacuum. Quarrelsome because we argue, rebel, riot, and bicker even with our own kin. Primitive because our ships burn fuel instead of singing harmonics. I can't fault your analysis. On paper, you're right. But paper doesn't fight wars, counselor. People do." The words landed strangely, half humorous, half dangerous. Several delegates shifted uneasily. Hale leaned back, crossing one ankle over his knee, utterly casual, as though this chamber of galactic law were his porch back home. He tapped his wristwatch, a battered analog thing with scratches across the glass. The ticking was inaudible but hypnotic. His eyes kept flicking down, as though waiting for something. The Avothi ambassador, a feathered matron with eyes like molten gold, cooed dismissively. "Your people are children. We've read your histories, tribal conflicts, endless civil wars, barbarity over land and color of skin. The Concord brings order. You will thank us when your chaos is disciplined." Hale smiled warmly. "We are indeed children, ma'am. Children who learn to fight before we learn to read. Our histories are messy bedtime stories written in blood and ash. But children grow, and the lesson they never forget is this: never confuse a lullaby for weakness." Several alien recorders scribbled notes, uncertain whether to interpret this as metaphor or threat. Hale noticed them and chuckled. "Don't worry, I'm harmless. Just trying to give you color commentary. Otherwise these sessions can get terribly dull." The Rinnathai mandibles clicked again. "Enough of this prattle. Do you yield to imperial dominion?" "Yield? Now that's a strong word." Hale swirled the last of his coffee. "Back home we use it for crops, or maybe football. Means something good comes out of pressure. Warms my heart you'd think of us that way. The chamber rustled with disbelief. This human was impossible to pin down. Was he mocking them? Was he naive? Or was he simply insane? Politeness wrapped around his words like sugar coating on poison, and no one could decide how much of each was inside. The Keldron counselor slammed a claw against the podium. Human, if your kind resists, you will be eradicated. Entire worlds have been erased for less. Hale's smile never wavered. That's what worries me. Not the threat, mind you. We're used to those. Worries me that you believe eradication is simple. Have you ever tried to stamp out ants in your garden? You crush one mound, 2 more pop up by morning. War with humans is like that. Irritating. Exhausting. We're very good at wasting our enemies' time. Gasps spread. A delegate from the crystalline Veari whispered. He speaks of endless war as though it were a hobby. Hale nodded appreciatively at the remark. Exactly. Endless war. It's not that we like it, it's that we endure it. We joke about it, laugh at it, hide from it in little things, songs, jokes, coffee. You think the cup in my hand is just caffeine? It's defiance brewed at 200 degrees. Keeps the hand steady when the world is burning. He held up the empty cup. For a ridiculous moment, it looked like a chalice. This is how my people fight, with one hand shaking, the other steady, with humor masking fear, with plans nested in plans. We never claimed to be the strongest. We just don't quit. The hall had grown unervingly quiet. The Keldron counselor tried to recover authority. You admit fear then. You admit fragility. Hale leaned forward, voice dropping soft as a whisper, yet somehow filling the room. Of course we're afraid. Only fools lack fear. But here's the thing you never told your empire about us. Fear doesn't stop us. It sharpens us. We don't fear war, counselor. We prepare for it. And when it comes, we welcome it like an old, unwelcome friend. One we know too well. The silence was suffocating now. No one shifted. Even the translation machines seemed to hesitate, as if reluctant to carry such words into every ear. Hale sat back, folding his hands, expression easy once more. He glanced at his watch again and smiled faintly, like a man waiting for a train that was already rounding the bend. The Keldron counselor sputtered. Your words are empty bravado. Perhaps, Hale said pleasantly. But bravado has toppled empires before. Ask history. She keeps receipts. The Avothi matron ruffled her feathers nervously. What do you mean by that timepiece you keep staring at? Hale tapped the scratch glass, expression mild. Oh, this old thing? Just habit. Humans like schedules. Appointments, deadlines, countdowns. Helps us feel in control of chaos. But sometimes it means something else. A ripple of unease spread like cold water across the delegates. Hale's watch ticked quietly, but the dreaded conjured thundered in their imaginations. For the first time, the Empire's mighty council felt smaller than the solitary human sipping lukewarm coffee. He rose from his chair with deliberate calm, straightening his suit as though preparing to leave. His voice was still cordial, still wrapped in courtesy, but each word carried the weight of iron. You summoned us here to declare humanity conquered. I'll save you the paperwork. We're not conquered. We're waiting. You think you're teaching us fear. The truth is simpler. He leaned over the podium, smiling as though sharing a secret with a friend. His eyes, warm until now, burned with an intensity that made several delegates recoil. No one told your empire the truth about humans. We don't fear war. The watch ticked once more. Hale straightened, his smile widening with something almost pitying. He lifted the empty cup in a mock toast to the Chamber of Conquerors. You'll find out what that means soon enough. The first shots came not in a grand fleet battle, but in the dust of a nameless border moon, a place so unimportant the Empire had not bothered to give it a proper designation. The humans called it Red Haven, after the soil that stained boots like rust. It was meant to be a simple sweep. A detachment of the Concord's armored troops landed with orders to pacify the new arrivals, show them what resistance cost. The commanders promised their soldiers a quick, bloodless victory. Fragile species never fought long. But when the armored phalanx advanced through the canyons, they found human shapes already waiting in the shadows, rifles braced on rocks, eyes glinting through dust goggles. There was no speech, no warning, no ceremony. The humans opened fire with precision that belied their small numbers. Not scattered chaos, but layered patterns, crossfire from angles the Empire hadn't mapped, explosions timed to the second. The Concorde's machines of war stalled, lumbering forward into traps that looked improvised, but had been calculated with uncanny foresight. The alien commander, a Zorati whose 4 arms bristled with ceremonial spikes, barked laughter through comms. Pitiful, he sneered. They throw themselves at us like vermin. Look, one sings while firing. They are mad. Indeed, one soldier had broken into a tune, some old Earth marching song, off-key, but carried with gusto. Others laughed, even as plasma bolts carved trenches in the dirt around them. Their helmets bore painted symbols, jaws of sharks, crude grins, teeth scrawled in white. What the Concorde thought was madness was discipline wrapped in humor. Marcus Hale watched the engagement from orbit, seated in a cramped command pod disguised as an observation vessel. The other delegates had insisted on attending remotely, screens flickering with alien faces eager to witness humanity's defeat. Hale leaned back, hands folded over his chest, calm as if he were watching a baseball game on Sunday afternoon. His eyes never left the feeds, small squads moving like water, flowing around heavier units, retreating not in panic, but in planned arcs that drew the enemy deeper. They advanced toward our fire. The Avothi matron whispered on her channel, feathers shivering. This is not retreat. What are they doing? Recklessness, the Zorati commander declared. They lack instinct for survival. Soon they will break. Hale sipped from another paper cup, this one filled with tea, steam fogging the edge of his glasses. Funny thing about survival, counselor. Sometimes the best way through the fire is straight ahead. Makes you look fearless. Terrifies the other side. Below, a squad of humans darted forward in what looked like suicidal bravery, charging a fortified emplacement with nothing but rifles and grit. Plasma cannons tore the ground apart, yet somehow the humans kept running, vaulting over rocks, sliding under beams of light, closing the distance with impossible stubbornness. They hurled grenades not at the defenders, but at the supports holding the emplacement. The entire platform collapsed, burying its own gunners. The delegates erupted in disbelief. They do not value their lives, hissed the crystalline Veari. How do you fight those who rush toward death? Hale's smile was faint but sharp. With caution. Or not at all. As the battle stretched, the Empire expected panic to fracture the human lines. Instead, laughter crackled over intercepted comms. Soldiers swapped jokes between bursts of fire, argued about the best diners back home, teased one another about marksmanship. The noise wasn't chaos, it was rhythm, a heartbeat that steadied trembling hands. Fear was there. Hale knew it, every soldier knew it, but it was buried under layers of banter, smothered until it turned into fuel. One alien officer recorded a snippet of human comms. Tell Mom I'm late for dinner. Save me a seat in hell, boys. Bet you 5 credits I hit the big one on the left. The officer shook his head in disbelief. This was not how professional soldiers spoke. It sounded more like a group of friends sharing beer around a fire. And yet, position after position fell, until the mighty Concorde detachment found itself forced into retreat. The Empire's loss was not catastrophic in numbers, but it was catastrophic in pride. 100 humans against 1,000 Imperials should have been a massacre. Instead, the invincible machine staggered, humiliated. After the battle, in the council chamber, voices rose in outrage. The Keldron slammed a clawed hand onto the table. This was trickery. They lured us into terrain of their choosing. They baited us. Hale inclined his head as though flattered. Bait requires patience, counselor. Patience is not primitive. Patience is predation. The Avothi matron leaned forward. You call this strategy? Strategy, Hale said lightly, is chess played with lives. My people have been playing it since before we learned to fly. We quarrel, yes, but every quarrel teaches us something about leverage, about cost, about the psychology of the opponent. We train by fighting ourselves endlessly, So when a new foe arrives, well, he spread his hands, palms open, the gesture of a man offering hospitality. We already know most of moves. The Zorti commander snarled. Your soldiers ran into our guns like lunatics. Calculated lunatics, Hale corrected. Every mad dash covered another maneuver. Every laugh hit a signal. You mistook the smile for stupidity. That mistake cost you the field. The chamber boiled with fury and disbelief. The Vayari delegate whispered, it cannot be sustained. They cannot enjoy this madness forever. Hale's eyes glinted. Enjoy? No. Endure? Always. That is the difference. Reports trickled in over the next days. Small human detachments on other fringe worlds had resisted patrols, each time using unorthodox methods. They disguised their ships as derelicts, only to spring ambushes. They surrendered positions, then detonated charges that collapsed entire valleys. In one bizarre account, a squad greeted alien troops with a white flag, offered them hot food, then used the dinner conversation to map enemy numbers before slipping away into the night. The Empire began whispering a new word, unpredictable. It unsettled them more than strength ever could. Strength they understood. Unpredictability was chaos, and chaos spread like infection. In private quarters, Hale listened to intercepted chatter with a faint, amused patience. He played back recordings of alien officers struggling to explain human behavior to their superiors. He wrote notes in a battered journal, old-fashioned paper against the glowing screens. His entries were simple observations. They noticed the singing. Good. They noticed the humor. Better. They don't see the patterns underneath. Not yet. The delegates confronted him again, demanding explanations. Hale remained unflappably courteous. We're not invincible. Plenty of our people died on Redhaven. We mourn them. But you should understand something. Mourning for us is not paralysis. It's motivation. Each death plants a seed of resolve. You call us fragile. I call us stubborn. The Keldron seethed. This was a skirmish. We will deploy fleets. You cannot sing against Starfire. Hale tilted his head, smile never fading. We'll see, counselor. Histories full of empires that thought fire was enough. The words carried weight, but it was his tone, mild, conversational, that burrowed under alien scales. It wasn't shouted defiance. It was observation, almost weary, as though he had seen this cycle before. Rumors spread among lower-ranking alien soldiers. They spoke of humans who laughed at their own funerals, who painted their weapons with jokes, who treated combat like sport. They told tales of captured humans refusing to beg, instead telling their captors embarrassing jokes, until even hardened veterans grew unsettled. The Empire prided itself on instilling terror. Terror was useless against those who turned it into comedy. Back on Redhaven, the surviving human squads buried their dead in neat rows, marking graves with helmets and scraps of cloth. They stood silent, heads bowed, before one soldier muttered, Betty's already arguing politics with St. Peter. Laughter rippled, tears and chuckles mixing in the dry air. That was how humans grieved, by refusing to let silence win. Marcus Hale reviewed the footage with quiet pride. To the council he said nothing, only poured himself another cup of coffee, the steam curling like smoke from a battlefield. His watch ticked softly on his wrist. Every glance at it deepened the unease of those who noticed. One by one, the alien delegates began to understand the first crack had opened, not in human defenses, but in imperial certainty. The illusion of inevitability had been shattered by a people who should have been easy prey, but refused to follow the script. As the chamber adjourned, Hale paused at the doorway, turning back with that same patient smile. You wanted to see our fragility. Instead, you saw our reflex. Fear sharpened into defiance. That was only the first taste. Next time, you'll see what happens when we stop merely enduring. He tapped his watch, the faint sound echoing louder than any threat. The delegates stared, unable to shake the dread blooming in their chests. For the first time, the thought entered their minds unbidden, heavy as gravity. Perhaps humanity was not learning war from the Empire. Perhaps humanity had been waiting for an enemy foolish enough to test it. And Marcus Hale polite as ever, left them with a final glance that was not a smile, but something colder, sharper. An unspoken promise. The Empire answered humiliation with fire. What had begun as a border skirmish turned into a full campaign. Fleets were dispatched to Red Haven and beyond, star destroyers gleaming with the arrogance of inevitability. The Council assured itself the defeats were accidents, flukes born of terrain or incompetence. Against the full weight of the Concorde's war machine, humans would fold like parchment in flame. It had happened before with dozens of species. It would happen again. From orbit above Red Haven, the sky grew dark with Imperial hulls, eclipsing the sun with shadows of steel. Entire continents trembled beneath their arrival, the atmosphere groaning with descending dread. Civilian transports fled, streaking trails of light through the upper clouds. Soldiers whispered in mess halls that this would be the end, that no amount of laughter or grit could withstand the coming storm. Marcus Hale stood at the heart of it all, quiet in a makeshift command center carved from a mining shaft. The walls were still streaked with iron dust, the air stank of grease and sweat. Around him, holographic maps flickered with endless swarms of red markers. The enemy's approach. To the untrained eye, it looked hopeless. To Hale, it looked like opportunity. He adjusted his tie, though it was already loose from heat, and spoke to the gathered officers with the calm of a man giving instructions for a family picnic. They think they're boxing us in. They're spreading wide, pulling assets from half the sectors they conquered, just to show us their teeth. And in doing so, he tapped a glowing section of the map, a crescent of stretched supply lines. They've overextended. That's the thing about empires. They love the big entrance, but forget the cleanup. One officer, her face streaked with grime, shook her head. Sir, with respect, these fleets outnumber us 20-1. Even if they're overextended, it won't matter if they crush us in the first engagement. Hale's smile was faint, not dismissive, but maddeningly assured. Which is why the first engagement isn't the one that matters. We'll give them the one they're expecting. Let them believe they've won. Then we close the trap. His watch ticked on his wrist. He checked it not with nervousness, but with ritual precision, as if every second carried meaning only he could see. Above, the fleets descended. The first clashes were brutal. Human ships darted like minnows before leviathans, outgunned and outnumbered. Entire wings sacrificed themselves in kamikaze spirals, slamming into larger vessels to cripple shields. Alien commanders reported victory, boasting across comms of human fragility exposed at last. Screens filled with the glow of cities burning, defenses collapsing, soldiers overwhelmed. And yet, something felt wrong. Too many human ships fled on predictable vectors, not scattered in panic, but aligned in silent corridors of space. Too many soldiers surrendered in orderly groups, not broken rabble, but calm faces hiding something unspoken. Even in defeat, they smiled. Even as plasma fire rained around them, captured soldiers whispered jokes to each other, unnerving their guards. The Zorti commander watched the footage with narrowed eyes. They're breaking. This is what I told you. They have no instinct to survive. But the Avothi matron's feathers rippled with unease. No. They bleed, yes, but look at their eyes. They wait. For what? In the council chamber, Hale appeared on the central display, his suit rumpled, hair damp with sweat, yet his expression remained disarmingly calm. Congratulations, he said, as though speaking to dinner guests. You've managed to drive us from our first line of defense. It must feel good. But tell me, how many fleets did you pull from your borders to make this show of strength? How many worlds did you strip of garrisons just to crush us in spectacle? The Keldron counselor sneered. Enough to annihilate you. Hale chuckled softly, tapping his watch. Ah, see, that's the problem. You don't annihilate ants by stepping on one hill. You only scatter them long enough to notice the swarm behind you. The delegates exchanged confused murmurs. Hale's tone was polite, almost apologetic, but the words carried knives. You walk straight into our net. We gave you the bait, easy targets, desperate defenses, soldiers who looked like they broke too soon. And while your fleets gathered here, our other hands moved freely. Your borders are thin now, aren't they? Your supply chain stretched. Funny how war teaches multitasking. Reports began to flicker in, urgent and panicked. Outposts on distant sectors under sudden attack. Convoys vanishing into ambushes. Rebel cells supplied mysteriously with human weapons, rising against Concord garrisons on half a dozen worlds. The mighty machine of the Empire, so focused on its grand strike, found its joints collapsing. Hale's eyes glinted. War isn't about strength. It's about timing. And ours is impeccable. On Redhaven, the supposed collapse of human lines reversed with shocking speed. Those who had surrendered broke free, coordinated with uncanny precision. Hidden caches erupted with weapon fire. Ships that had feigned retreat wheeled back in perfect arcs, striking exposed flanks. The laughing madness of humanity revealed its order. The chaos had been choreography. Alien soldiers froze as they realized every joke, every reckless charge, every retreat had been deliberate performance. The traps snapped shut. In the chamber, the crystalline Veari delegate whispered in horror. They orchestrated this from the start. Hale inclined his head politely. We tried to warn you. Smiles are deceptive things. You saw weakness when we were setting the stage. You thought our fear would paralyze us. But fear is just the drumbeat we march to. You've mistaken rehearsal for collapse. The council broke into shouting, demands for reinforcements, accusations of treachery. Hale stood in the center of it all, calm as ever, sipping from another paper cup. He let the chaos boil before speaking again, voice quiet but carrying through the uproar. The truth is simple. You were never teaching us fear. We were teaching you patience. And patience has teeth. Above Redhaven, Imperial destroyers erupted as human strikes detonated fuel lines. Smaller corvettes darted between them, weaving like dancers in firelight. Alien commanders screamed orders, but their formations crumbled. Each move already anticipated, each counter neutralized. Humanity had studied their patterns, memorized their habits, and lured them into a play they didn't know they were part of. In the smoke of battle, human soldiers pressed forward, rifles hot, boots sliding through blood and dust. They laughed not because the fight was easy, but because it was unbearable otherwise. One soldier, crouched beside his comrade, muttered through clenched teeth, "Think they'll still call us fragile now?" The other grinned, blood streaking his helmet. Fragile like dynamite. On a captured Imperial cruiser, alarms wailed as humans took control of the bridge. A terrified alien officer spat, "You're insane. You should have fled." The human sergeant leaned close, voice calm. "Running's not our style. We prefer mazes. You just walked into ours." He fired into the console, sealing the ship under human control. Back in the council chamber, Hale clasped his hands behind his back, posture relaxed, as though discussing weather. "You see, counselors, war for us is never just destruction. It's theater. You believed you were the audience, watching us flail. But the stage was yours all along, and the curtain has only just risen." The delegates stared speechless, as reports stacked higher, fleets lost, colonies falling, rebellions ignited. The illusion of control cracked like glass under pressure. The Keldron hissed, oily skin flashing fury. "You tricked us. You used deceit." "Of course," Hale said with a shrug. "That's what prey does. It deceives the predator until the predator realizes, too late, it was the prey all along." Silence followed, thick and choking. The realization was dawning slowly and terribly. Humanity had not resisted out of desperation. Humanity had baited the Empire into overreach, into arrogance, into the jaws of a trap centuries in the making. Hale checked his watch one final time, then looked up with a smile that no longer warmed but chilled. Right on schedule. The counselors shivered at the words. Somewhere above Redhaven, Imperial ships blossomed into fire, and the galaxy's most powerful empire felt a first true pang of doubt. And Marcus Hale, ever polite, ever smiling, leaned forward with a softness that cut deeper than any scream. "You still don't understand. This isn't the climax. This is only intermission." The Empire tried to recover with sheer weight of metal. More fleets were summoned, pulled from the farthest edges of its domain, tearing garrisons away from outposts that had never known rebellion. They converged like storm clouds above the scarred moons where humanity had dared resist. To the Council, this was the moment of reckoning. No cunning trick or reckless charge could hold against the final blow. This would be the lesson that bent humans into obedience. It would be remembered as the day the strange, laughing species learned fear. Marcus Hale walked into the council chamber as if arriving late to a dinner appointment. His suit was cleaner now, pressed by unseen hands, but his eyes were ringed with exhaustion. He carried no coffee this time. Instead, a plain folder of papers rested under his arm, an almost archaic prop in a chamber of holograms and light. He greeted the counselors with the same easy smile that had haunted them since his first arrival. "You've brought the storm," he said lightly, nodding toward the projections of massive fleets assembling above human colonies. "It's impressive. Truly. You've pulled teeth from the edges of your maw to make a single bite. Very dramatic." The Keldron counselor sneered, oily skin flashing iridescent rage. "This is no drama. It is extinction. You will kneel or vanish." Hale set the folder gently on the podium, opening it to reveal maps. Old paper maps of Earth, frayed at the edges. He traced a finger across lines marked with dates and names. Verdun, Stalingrad, Fallujah. He spoke each word softly, as if reciting prayer. "We've rehearsed extinction many times before. Different names, different fields, same story. You think you're teaching us? Counselor, we wrote the manual." The Avothi matron shivered, feathers quivering. "You claim survival, yet you are but a child species. You have never faced a fleet like this." Hale looked up, smile fading into something steadier, colder. "That's where you're wrong. Every war we've fought with ourselves was rehearsal for this. You see monsters in your fleets. We see reflections. And reflections don't frighten us. They remind us of who we are." Reports streamed in even as he spoke. Human fleets, smaller and outnumbered, held their ground with unnatural calm. They absorbed losses that would have broken other species, adapting within hours, reshaping strategies as if improvisation was a second skin. Alien commanders reported frustration, disbelief. Every time the Empire tried to press advantage, the humans bent but did not shatter. And when they struck back, it was with precision that seemed prophetic. On the bridge of one human ship, a young pilot hummed an old song while steering through waves of enemy fire. "We're not supposed to survive this," his co-pilot muttered. The pilot grinned, sweat streaking his face. "We're not surviving. We're practicing." He veered sharply, leading a cluster of Imperial fighters into a minefield hidden in asteroid shadows. The explosion lit the void like sunrise. To the Council, Hale explained it plainly. "Fear is not our weakness. It's our fuel. We feel it, yes. We choke on it, sometimes. But instead of fleeing from it, we train with it, carry it, laugh at it, bleed it into our history. You thought we feared war. The truth is worse. We know war. We are war." The words hung heavy, sinking into the chamber like stones dropped into water. Even the Keldron flinched, claws curling against the podium. Hale's voice softened, almost pitying. "You could have left us alone. We'd have quarreled among ourselves as always. But you gathered us under one flag, one enemy. You gave us unity. That was your first mistake." The second mistake played out across the galaxy. With fleets stripped from their posts, entire sectors erupted in revolt. Species long crushed beneath the Concorde's heel rose up, emboldened by whispers of human defiance. Weapons appeared in their hands, smuggled through channels no one could trace. Everywhere the Empire looked, fire spread. Hale lifted one of the maps from his folder, holding it up for all to see. It showed Earth's globe, covered in red marks from centuries of conflict. "This is our inheritance. Not monuments or riches. These scars. We learned to make meaning out of them, to build futures on the bones of yesterday's mistakes. You thought war would break us. But war is the only teacher we've ever truly trusted." In orbit above Redhaven, the decisive strike came. The Empire unleashed its superweapons, colossal carriers bristling with annihilation beams. Entire mountain ranges vanished under their fire. Cities dissolved into glass. The sight was meant to paralyze. Instead, human fleets surged forward with terrifying calm. using the chaos as cover. Destroyers slid beneath the beams, tearing into carrier hulls with coordinated barrages. Boarding parties stormed enemy bridges, faces streaked with ash and grins that unsettled their captors. One captured alien officer, trembling under human custody, whispered, "Why are you not afraid?" The sergeant answered with weary honesty, "We are afraid. That's why we win." In the council chamber, silence deepened as more reports arrived. Imperial fleets crumbling, core sectors screaming for aid, rebellions spreading unchecked. Hale closed his folder, hands folding neatly atop it. He spoke with the courtesy of a man explaining an unfortunate but unavoidable outcome. "This is not conquest. This is correction. You mistook patience for weakness. You mistook laughter for fragility. But when pushed, humanity does not retreat. It adapts. And when cornered, it bites." The crystalline Vayari delegate whispered what none dared admit. "They are not prey." "No," Hale said softly. "We are predators pretending to be prey until the moment the mask is no longer useful." Outside, the Concord's banners fell one by one. Planets declared independence. Fleets that had once sworn obedience went silent, their commanders defecting or destroyed. The great machine that had ruled for centuries began to unravel, not with a single decisive blow, but with 1,000 small fractures spreading at once. The trap had not just been military. It had been psychological. Humanity had taught the galaxy a new fear, the realization that war was not their terror but their element. Hale checked his watch, its scratched face glinting under chamber lights. He smiled faintly, not triumphant but sorrowful. "Right on time." The Avothi matron leaned forward, voice breaking. "What do you want from us?" Hale's eyes lingered on her, softening with something almost human in its empathy. "Survival. Nothing more. We don't take pleasure in this. But you forced our hand. And now you must learn the same lesson we carved into ourselves long ago. War is not glory. It is not conquest. It is endurance. And endurance is ours." The chamber fell into stunned silence, every delegate haunted by the simple truth revealed with devastating politeness. Humanity had not feared the storm. It had waited for it, lured it closer, and turned it into fuel. Hale gathered his folder, leaving the empty podium behind. As he reached the doors, he turned once more, offering the council a final, quiet farewell. This was not the extinction of humans. This was the extinction of illusions. Yours, not ours. And with that he stepped into shadow, while outside, the Empire burned with the light of its own arrogance.